glad to stand here to present my work. I'm Terrence. I'm from University of Copenhagen in Netherlands. I'm doing my PhD in the final year, so I'm on job market this year. And today I'm going to present one of my work on servant leadership variability. I think that's a bit different from what we know about servant leadership, because previously we assumed it's quite stable. So now today I'm going to challenge it a bit, that I propose a new concept of it. And yeah, so I will further illustrate. Oh, that's perfect. Thank you, Nathan. Okay, so first of all, I'm really grateful for all of my co-authors for Yanni and Li they collect data for me. And also thanks for the judging. He helped me analyze the direct data. And especially I'm quite grateful for Jasmine's help. Although she's quite busy, she still helped me provide some very important comment that helped me finalize the model. Okay, so I guess most of you are much familiar with the concept of servant leadership rather than me, so I will not waste time to explain what servant leadership is. So I'll start from what we already know in the literature. So I think we already know that in the literature, the studies already found that, not only in academic but also in practice, we already know that servant leadership can bring all kinds of benefits to not only followers, but also the leaders themselves, and also teams, organizations, and also society, as I would say. So based on the review paper by Nathan, and we can see that servant leadership can positively predict all kinds of desirable outcomes, just like the performance, OCD, helping, wise behaviors of the followers, and also their attitudinal outcomes like their commitment, their satisfaction, something like that, and also their performance. So that's what we already know in the literature. And I think there might exist one implicit assumption in all of the studies that servant leadership is stable. Is that always the case? That's the question we ask. Let's imagine, for another example, love. No matter what is love is, just your parents' love, your love for your husband or your wife. Is that always stable, or do they love you exactly at the same level across different days? I don't think so. For example, your wife or your husband made you 3 meals today because he or she is not that busy. But on the next day, he or she could be quite busy and you have no time for 3 meals, maybe 1 meal. So you see, that would be the nuanced difference between the love. But I would say that can be quite similar to all other behaviors, especially for interpersonal behaviors. So I think the servant leadership might be applied to this kind of case. And especially servant leadership is defined as a behavior style. It's not personality, because we assume that personality is kind of stable. But nowadays, psychologists also argue that personality can also vary across time. So I think servant leadership can vary due to several reasons. So first of all, studies already found that servant leadership can vary across days. That for those leaders who are low in perspective taking, their servant leadership behavior on focus day will negatively predict the servant leadership on the next day. And also, we are all human, so the same for the servant leaders. And the leaders also, they have their biological chronotypes that will determine the ups and downs of their behaviors across days, all within the days. For example, for the early birds, they're quite energetic in the morning, so that they might do more servant behaviors in the morning. But for night owl leaders, they can get very, quite lazy in the morning, so maybe they do not serve too much in the morning. And also, the definition of servant leadership mainly involves the needs of the followers or the needs of the community. But that will also vary across different days. For example, this community, the followers really need leaders to help them today, but not this day, but not next day. So that kind of variation may also lead to very variation of servant leadership because they don't need you. So how would that exist if they don't need you to serve? So in this research, we proposed a concept called servant leadership variability to capture this kind of variation. And we defined it as the individual difference in the fluctuation pattern of the leader-servant leadership behaviors over time. And this example of what we assumed in servant leadership research, that servant leadership is quite stable and is quite a low level of servant leadership variability. So it's forever, like 5, 5, 5, 5 across different days. But there might be some nuances. For example, the leaders may serve you today, it's at the peak, but on the next day, the leader maybe he or she is just off work and have no chance to provide the serving behaviors, so it will be the valley. So as you can see, this could be a case of high servant leadership variability. And that would be a more extreme case. Maybe in the morning, the leader serves you quite a lot, but in the afternoon, and maybe the leader becomes angry or what and refuses to serve. And that would be a very extreme case of the high servant leadership variability. And also that might happen quite often, that a leader may serve you in a very different way, but in quite a nuanced way. That, okay, I may serve you more a bit in the morning, but less a bit in the afternoon, something like that. So that you can see, once we define it as a behavior, it of course has a variability across time. So if you were to take a dynamic look at the servant leadership and this behavior manifestation, it may involve some variability issue. So our main research question is that does servant leadership variability affect the impact of servant leadership behavior? Because previously we found and we assumed that servant leadership can bring benefits once the leader just serves you. But we guess it may not be the case. And we mainly draw two theories to address this issue. So first we used the adaptation level theory from psychology, and they found that people will form a kind of reactive pattern toward the repetitive or similar stimuli, so that we need to adapt to this kind of stimuli and form a kind of schema within our brains to know, okay, I can predict when it comes next or when it will come. So basically the theory just said that exposure to early stimuli serves as a frame of reference for us to judge or evaluate or predict what comes next. So it will provide a reference of the previous behaviors for the future behaviors. And we also further draw on the attachment theory to see what kind of influence would that be if the leaders provides highly variant level of the servant leadership behaviors. Because followers, just like children or parents, they will form various types of the attachment behavior system to react to the leaders or the parents' behaviors. And psychologists mainly found three types of attachment systems: secure, anxious, and avoidant attachment systems. And basically our proposition is that if a leader, no matter whether the leader shows high level of servant leadership behaviors or low level of servant leadership behaviors, if the leader shows a high level of variability of servant leadership, that the followers will feel quite anxious about upcoming servant leadership behaviors, because the followers will not anticipate the possibility of the upcoming servant leadership behaviors, and he or she would worry about, okay, will he or she serve me today? So that's quite anxious. But for the high level of servant leadership behavior and the low level of servant leadership variability, and the follower is quite certain, okay, my leader is constantly a servant, so that they will serve me forever. So I'm quite safe. I can do whatever I want to do my work, to explore more opportunities, to be creative, something like that. But for the low level of servant leadership behavior, and also the low level of servant leadership variability. So that means that a leader would never serve, so that the followers would never expect that. So it would form avoidant attachment. So basically that's our main hypothesis. So we propose the interaction effects of the servant leadership behavior and the servant leadership variability. And we choose work engagement as our criteria to evaluate this influence. And we use the follower need satisfaction to explain why the followers will alter their engagement due to the servant leadership pattern. And so this is basically our conceptual model. We propose that servant leadership can, of course, positively predict the follower need satisfaction and the follower work engagement. But if we involve the factor of servant leadership variability, so we propose that this kind of variability variable will undermine or reduce the positive benefits of the servant leadership behavior. And we conducted 4 empirical studies with 5 different samples. So we first conducted one exploratory study to challenge a bit the stable assumption in the long-standing servant leadership research. And then we conducted 2 field direct studies to examine our main model. And at last, we conducted one experiment study to try to establish the causality of our proposition. So the first study we aim to explore, so to extend the servant leadership variability exists in our real world. So is it my fantasy or just my imagination, or is that real? So I will test that. And so I collect data from 2 different samples, from managers and also from the employees, to see whether the managers, the leaders, or the followers, they will have experienced the similar level of the servant leadership variability. And I mainly used 2 different types of measures, the Likert scale and also the binary question. So for the Likert scale, I used 2 types of the scaling points. The first is what we already used in previous servant leadership research, the extent. So to extent to your leader serve you. And I also have one new scaling point in my study. I asked for the variability or the dynamism of the behaviors. So that's the measure I used. I used 2 scales from established studies. So first is what we know about the followers rating of the leaders' servant leadership behaviors. And I also used a scale from Chen Wei Liao's study because they measured servant leadership behavior from leaders' self-rating. So I also adopted their measures. So for this manager sample, I asked the participant to evaluate their own servant leadership and evaluate whether it would be stable or not. So for the followers, I asked them to evaluate their leaders' servant behaviors. And after I asked the average level of servant leadership behavior, just like what we already know in the literature, I then asked them the variability of servant leadership, but using the same items. I use same 12 items, just using the different scaling points. So asking to evaluate how stable or how dynamic would your leaders or your own servant behavior would be. And I additionally asked 3 other questions, overall questions, to let them reflect their overall impression of servant leadership variability. And before that, I already gave a basic explanation of the concept of servant leadership. So I asked the binary question. So do you think your leaders or your own servant leadership behavior is stable or not? And then I asked one question to let them directly reflect on the variability, and also ask them to see whether the variability of servant leadership would be differentiated among other followers. So that's our results. We found for the manager sample that nearly half of the manager admit that their leadership, their servant leadership behaviors can be varied across different days. And for the followers, the data is not that good because only maybe less than one third followers would admit that their leaders' behaviors vary across days. So I guess that's probably because the followers overall just have a very general impression to evaluate their leaders' behaviors. So will not try to differentiate the behaviors across days. And that's what we found from the measuring items. So for the average level of the segmentation behavior, we found that generally it was positioned at a very high level. So most of the leaders are servant leaders. But for the variability, it's not that good. We can find the average level of the variability is not that high as we expected. So we can conclude that there are some extent of the variability, but not too much. And also it can have some differentiations among different followers for the segmentation variability. So based on this data, we can see, okay, there might be some extent of the variability, but we need to further try to examine our hypothesis in a more detailed way. So we conducted two direct studies. So in the study 2, we examined the main model without examining the mediation mechanism. And we collect data from 85 leader follower data. And in a period of 15 work days within 3 weeks, we collected from China. And we measured the control variables in the entry survey and the daily survey. We measured variables at 2 time points within the same day. So we measured the leadership behavior during lunchtime and the followers' work engagement after dinner. And we asked the leaders to evaluate their own leadership behavior on focal day. Like today, I put an employee's best interest of my own ahead of my own. And after dinner, we asked the followers to reflect upon their work engagement. And we operationalized the leadership variability using a standard deviation across all daily scores we got in our daily data. And we defined it as between person variable. And that's the approach mainly already used in OP research and other variability variables, just like justice or work engagement. And the mean level of the leadership variability we found is 0.8, so you can see it's not that high level of the variability. And then we could also control other variables like demographics and the average level of the daily leadership behavior. And we also control the 2% level of the transformation leadership. And we dig deeper into the data. We found that leadership behavior exhibited 38% of the within person variance. That means that, okay, leadership indeed has variance. And we then conducted a past model analysis to examine our main hypothesis. And we found that, okay, the interaction effect is significant as we expected. So it's also negative. So it means that the leadership variability indeed weakens the benefit effect of the leadership behaviors. And that's what we found. So we found for the high leadership variability, this kind of leaders, their daily leadership behavior will not significantly increase the followers' work engagement, just like this line is basically flat. But for the low leadership variability, this kind of leader, their leadership behavior is quite effective in increasing followers' work engagement. So that's our main finding. And then we conducted study 3 to examine the mediating mechanism, and we also try to include more variables, more other leadership variables to see whether our finding will be robust. And we then conduct another study in China, but only using the employee sample, and with a period of 10 work days within 2 weeks. And we adopted mainly similar research design to measuring of variables at 2 different time points. And in addition to the daily servant leadership behavior, we also measure the 3 other main leadership behaviors like ethical leadership, authentic leadership, and transformational leadership to exclude the influence of these variables. And also we measure the need satisfaction as the mediating mechanism. And we found that, okay, all of these variables have variability, so that may imply that we can do more research on other leadership behaviors, that ethical leaders, authentic leaders, and transformational leadership, all of them have variability across days. And that's what we found. Although we didn't find significant effect on the work engagement, but we found a significant effect on the need satisfaction. And we also found daily need satisfaction positively predicts the daily work engagement. And we also found an interesting effect that the ethical leadership behavior and its variability, it has very strong negative effect on all outcomes. So that we found that, okay, ethical leadership should not be varying across time. And that's the moderation plot we drew. And we found that, okay, it's quite similar. For the high servant leadership variability, benefit of the servant leadership behavior would not be that strong as in the low servant leadership variability. And we also tested the mediation effect, and it's also significant. And then we try to establish the causality issue because we only use the survey data and we cannot do that in a survey design. So we conducted one pre-registered VN-based experiment, and we collect data from Prolific. We recruited 250 participants, and we used the 2x2 experiment design. So the first factor is the overall the average level of servant leadership behavior, high versus low, and then we also manipulate the servant leadership variability. And we use the text from established study, and we manipulate variability just by altering some behavior factors on the established text variant. And in the original material, they exhibited 5 different behavioral components, and we altered 2. Okay, I'll try to go through it fast. And we just altered 2 components to make a high variability condition, but without altering the average level of servant leadership behaviors. And for the low variability condition, so it should be consistent across different paragraphs. So we use the original material. And then we also measured all other variables, but in a full item scales. And we also use the 3 variability items. And that's what we use in our manipulation. So this is the original material that I used in their study. So it's basically about the high-level servant leadership behaviors, but we just modify a few words to let the participants have the impression that a leader may vary in their servant leadership behaviors. For example, this would be the case that the leader allow the participant to work flexibly, but in this case, overall the leader is servant leader. But in this case, the path did not allow the participants, so it's kind of exception of the servant leader, but the path is still a servant leader in the overall impression. And our manipulation is definitely effective, otherwise we will not present here. And this is what we found, and unfortunately we didn't find a significant direct effect on the need satisfaction, but we can on the work engagement. But we can still see some patterns of the effect that the variability would reduce the beneficial effect of the servant leadership behaviors, and the effect on need satisfaction is quite significant. So that I can see for the high versus low niche behaviors, the high variability shows the similar level on a similar level of the need satisfaction. So basically, our research is to provide several theoretical contributions to the literature as an attempt. So first we identify the dynamism of the servant leadership, and we try to find some contingency effect of the servant leadership behaviors. Because previously we assumed that once the leader serves you, and you will feel satisfied. But we found this not the case. If the leader serves you in an occasional way, that the benefit effect may just disappear. And we also try to contribute to the general leadership literature that the variability of leadership exists, and we need more time to dig deeper into the literature. And we also provide some practical implications that leaders should exhibit a constant level of servant behaviors, and the organization should benefit supplement the effect on follower satisfaction if the leaders cannot do that on some moments. And that's the challenges we want to seek feedback from all of you, that some reviewers question the use of the theories, because we use two theories that are quite complicated, and reviewers propose different types of the concerns, and also some reviewers ask us to actually remove the first study, but we aim to be transparent, although the data is not that desirable, and they think the study one can be covered by other studies. So we are quite worried about whether we need to remove it or include it. So basically that's our study. Thank you so much.